The Packers should be on here. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Let's try to do power rankings after week 1 in the NFL, Grossi. And today we are going to go through the top 10 teams heading into week 2. And this is going to be pretty difficult because, as you saw this past weekend, a lot of sloppy football was being played. A lot of these teams, we're not going to see who they really are until probably around October, right around the end of September. That's when we get a feel of like, okay, this team, they're playing up to this potential. This is how their defense is, this is how their offense is. And you can't really get a full glimpse of that into week 1. You're still going off base stuff from last year. And of course, what you saw on the field this past weekend. So this week, we're going to have a little bit of fun with it. Not like a curse wheel with Brandon Perna, who impacts people's lives. But you're going to see some teams on here that maybe you wouldn't normally expect. And before we get to that, I do want to do some honorable mentions here. I want to shout out the New England Patriots, because the Patriots, oh boy, they kicked the crap out of the Cincinnati Bengals, who just did not show up to play. And even though the Bengals usually don't show up week 1, considering how heavily favored the Bengals were against the Patriots, I gotta give them props. Their run game and their defense was really, really good. Teams like the Saints and the Vikings, I'm not putting them in the top 10 because I'm looking at the quality of competition. And I know you might say that that's not fair, and that's totally valid. However, the Panthers and the Giants, I think, are bad. And even though the Saints played really, really well and the Vikings played really well, I'm leaving them out of the top 10 for right this second because I want to see them do it against a little bit of a quality opponent. And on top of that, I want to shout out the second half Seahawks, who beat the Denver Broncos. Again, not making the top 10 just yet, but if they could beat some quality opponents going forward, they might find themselves in the power rankings. And so, starting off with number 10, you're not going to believe who I put here. I'm rocking with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's right. I have succumbed to it. The Steelers are going to the Super Bowl. And there's a lot of reasons why we're going to put the Steelers on here, and I'm going to try to justify this. 1, looking at the quality of opponent. The Atlanta Falcons were heavily favored to win the NFC South this year, and they definitely still could. It's only week 1. But they were also favored to win this game. It was being played in Atlanta. Kirk Cousins was going to be there. And also, Russell Wilson wasn't even starting. It was Justin Fields, who had a pretty solid game. But the reason why I'm putting the Steelers here at number 10 is because they won the freaking game with just 6 field goals.
Is this the part where we start kicking?
Kicking? Oh, I want to do some kicking!
So not only did their offense not need to perform at its best, but looking at the defense, TJ Watt. TJ Watt actually should be the number 10 spot here because that man was a wrecking ball. A phenomenal game against the Falcons, and a bunch of his big plays got called back from penalties as well. TJ Watt was a game wrecker the entire time, and this new and improved Atlanta Falcons offense that we were supposed to see was really ineffective against a good Steelers defense. And TJ Watt was a major reason as to why that was happening. And so, do I think the Steelers are going to be this phenomenal football team? Probably not, but they're gonna, again, will themselves to a winning record because Mike Tomlin is a very, very good coach. And even though their offense, there's definitely a lot to be desired, that defense was just pulverizing the Atlanta offense. And because of that, I think they deserve some props going on the road, beating the Falcons. And so because of that, Steelers go to Super Bowl. Or they're at number 10. Then at number 9, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Oh! Who is the best freaking fracking quarterback from this weekend? You got the one Baker Mayfield, because Baker's gonna bake. And Mike Evans, he's still got it.
Oh, heads up. You see that? Still got the moves.
Mike Evans is just a cheat code at this point. He's always going to have 1,000 yards. He's always going to have touchdowns. And again, the quality of the opponent makes a difference here. However, Jaden Daniels played pretty damn well. He was the best looking rookie quarterback this past weekend, and I got to give him some props. So even though the offensive line of Washington and their defense is not that great, the Buccaneers looked really, really good. Their offense was efficient as hell. Their defense played solid. And if Baker Mayfield can continue this success, it's going to be one of the best stories in the NFL. Last last year, it was already a Cinderella story for Baker Mayfield. I was super down on the Buccaneers like everybody else. And not only did they win their division, but they also won a playoff game and were super competitive with the Lions. I'm super excited to see that rematch this upcoming weekend against the Lions and against a better team. But right now, the Buccaneers, you more than earned that top 10 spot, coming in at number 9. Number 8, you got the Buffalo Bills. Woo, that was scary for a minute. And listen, you might have to wait, but the Josh Allen magic always comes through.
A wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Hold the line. Josh Allen isn't always on time. That doesn't work. It doesn't work with the melody. Auto-tune it, Johnny. Josh Allen isn't always on time. But the Bills were losing to the Arizona Cardinals, who are my underdog team, because I really just feel like they have enough to potentially make the wild card, or at least be really, really competitive. And Kyler Murray, besides not throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr., played pretty damn well, especially in that first half. And there was a lot of trouble brewing for the Buffalo Bills. However, that defense locked down. They scored 21 unanswered points, and Josh Allen just took over that game. And so all the talks of overrated Josh Allen and this and that didn't matter, because Josh Allen is one of the few QBs who can take the entire game into his hands and win you the game. And sure, at some points he is going to mess up. There's going to be turnovers, all that great stuff. But Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And while the Cardinals are still a sneaky good team, you would expect the Buffalo Bills to win this game. And so I'm deducting them a tiny bit. That's why they're down here at number 8. But I got to give them props for the comeback. They definitely deserve to be in the top 10. And they'll be taking on the Dolphins this Thursday night. And that should be a fun game. Coming in at number 7, you got the Baltimore Ravens. And I know there might be some controversy here because they lost, and what is any loser team doing in the top 10? But hear me out. The Ravens, they nearly knocked off the Kansas City Chiefs, and they did not look perfect on Thursday night. However, it came down to a toe from being 1 point away from tying that game, and hell, they could have gone for it as well and gotten 2, and that could have been a different ball game. However, let's talk about the Ravens. Their offensive line, not very good against the Kansas City Chiefs. Got to deduct some points there. However, Lamar Jackson, similar to Josh Allen, did everything he can to win that game. And God forbid the Ravens didn't line up correctly, because if they did,
they put you in jail. Right away. No trial, no nothing. Right to jail. Right away.
Illegal formation. But I got to give some props to the Ravens because the Chiefs are so high on the power rankings. That's my justification here. I think they're going to be just fine. Zay Flowers played really, really well. They didn't really rush it as much as I thought they would with Derrick Henry, but the Ravens I still think are going to be a very good football team. And even though the Steelers are number 1 in the AFC North because they're the only team that won in the division this past weekend, I still think Baltimore is going to be very, very competitive. If their offensive line woes can get a little bit better and they're just a little rusty from week 1, I think that you will see vast improvements as the season goes on. But for right now, they've fallen down to number 7. We'll see if they can pick themselves back up. Number 6, you got the Houston Texans, otherwise known as the Strouds. The Texans in a phenomenal game with the Indianapolis Colts, in which Anthony Richardson only completed 9 passes, but the dude was electric on those 9 passes. It was a division rival and a very, very close game. However, the Texans, especially their run game, looking at you, Joe Mixon, a person I was very down on this season, and again, it is only week 1, but he proved me completely and totally wrong. So I am happy to be wrong there because Joe Mixon looked great. And on top of that, all 3 Texans star receivers made plays.
Just smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
And the Texans offense picked up right where it left off last season. I mean, CJ Stroud is completing 4th down conversions from his knees. He is him. And I did expect this to be a close game considering it was the Colts. They play each other twice a year. And I am curious to see how that offense is going to evolve as the weeks go on. I'm curious to see how that defense is going to look. But the Texans, they looked locked and loaded in week 1. And let's see how high they can possibly fly. Number 5, you got the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles Went into Brazil, and things did not start out well. 2 turnovers immediately. Jalen Hurts, a bad interception. There was a fumble, but then they came roaring back. And yes, their defense did allow 400 yards. So did the Packers. Packers not on this list because Jordan Love is hurt right now. I don't want to talk about it. But Saquon Barkley is about to be the most popular man in Philadelphia right now.
You're my new best friend.
Saquon, 3 touchdowns on the night, 2 rushing touchdowns, over 100 yards, and a receiving touchdown, and he looked phenomenal on Friday night. And while, of course, the offense had its bumps and bruises, especially in the beginning of that game, Jalen Hurts settled down a little bit. Devontae Smith had a really nice game. A.J. Brown had a really nice game. And the Eagles' defense played well in situations where they were cornered in the back of their end zone. Yes, of course, they did allow a lot of yards, and the Packers did keep it competitive, but I got to give props to the Eagles. They also beat a quality opponent in the Packers, considering they were a playoff team last year. And so you just got to hope that they clean up some of those mistakes going forward. But the Eagles, not the best looking team in the NFC East, but they were pretty damn close. Number 4, speaking of the NFC East, you got the Dallas Cowboys. See, here's the thing, Cowboys fans. I know you're excited. I know heading into this season, there really wasn't a ton of excitement. However, Dak Prescott becoming the $240 million man, $231 million guaranteed, the highest paid player in NFL history. I know that there's some grumbling about that because, hey, they could have gotten done sooner for a lot less money, but it is what it is. CeeDee Lamb, locked down. Dak Prescott, locked down. Micah Parsons, still need to worry about that one. But the Cowboys, good God, their defense put a beating on Deshaun Watson.
That f*** 'em up. I'ma do my stuff.
Did I enjoy watching it? Yes, I did, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. But this is where it gets a little bit complicated because we're trying to evaluate the defense and the offense of the Cowboys while also comparing it to the Browns' offense, which was abysmal. Late in the third quarter, there was a stat that popped up on the TV that said 50% of the Browns' plays either went for 0 or negative yards. That's really bad. And so I got to give some props to the Cowboys defense, which was really, really good last year, and they did cause problems for Deshaun Watson. But Watson also was god-awful, and they really couldn't do anything. Jerome Ford had a pretty nice day, but they could barely throw past the line of scrimmage, and every single time Watson did, it was not good. So I'm trying to evaluate how bad were the Browns as opposed to how good were the Cowboys. And so the Cowboys are obviously getting a good amount of credit here because regardless, they beat the crap out of the Cleveland Browns. They're sitting at number 4. And I know the Cowboys are a great regular season team, and we know it's really not going to matter until they win a playoff game. So congrats on 4. Number 3, you got the Detroit Lions. Oh, what a game on Sunday night. The only game to go into overtime. And the Lions look pretty damn good. That secondary held up real well. That was a weak point of their defense last year, and it looked a lot better this week. Taking a look at that offense, picking up right where they left off. David Montgomery, phenomenal. Jared Goff, really efficient night. Made a couple mistakes and some bad throws, but very, very efficient night. And Amon-Ra St. Brown really didn't even have to get involved. It was J-Mo, the guy who they have been waiting for to be on the field consistently and to make plays. He was a speedster and was causing all types of problems for the Rams secondary. And on top of that, the Lions' new uniforms, they got some perks in the end zone. But the Lions capped off with that incredible overtime drive where they just marched down the field. They looked like they were very consistent, in which they were calm. Dan Campbell went for it on 4th down. They converted, and it just looked like the Lions were a very, very confident football team. And it makes sense because they're expected to be really, really good this year. And so the Lions, they're coming in at number 3. I'm sure we're going to be seeing them all over the power rankings this year. Yay. But Lions, Blue Kitty went meow this week. And plus, you were the only kitty that won. Number 2, you got the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers, we want to talk about efficient teams. They looked unstoppable on Monday Night Football. They never panicked. Brock Purdy had a couple of meh throws, but for the most part, that game was all Jordan Mason. They controlled the time of possession. At one point, it was 15 minutes for the Jets compared to 30 minutes for the San Francisco 49ers, and the game did not finish that differently in time of possession by the end of it. And I looked at this game, and it just looked like perfection. And what I mean by that is they ran the ball well. When they wanted to throw, they threw it efficiently. and they just dominated the Jets. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't crazy, but they were putting together 7-minute drives. They were dominating the clock. And yeah, they ran all over that Jets defense. And at this point, Aaron Rodgers beating the 49ers is a fairy tale.
Yeah. Like that's ever gonna happen. Oh, look at.
And while it did kill me a little bit to see that Aaron Rodgers was very stationary, he still had it. He had an amazing throw to Allen Lazard, which was beautiful. But the Jets just had no answer for the 49ers run game, and they really just could not stop them all night. And the Jets, I expect them to be a very competitive football team. So the quality of competition was there. The 49ers, they embarrassed the Jets. By the third quarter, you knew that game was over. And yeah, 49ers, great. You're going to be good again. But don't forget, you still have to play Brock Purdy. Sorry, I'm just coping. And finally, number one, no surprise here, you got the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs, they won by a toe, but people are still going to find a way to blame the refs.
Are they going
You want
to
a
get...
toe? I can get you a toe. Believe me.
And yes, I know the illegal formation calls, and Juwan Taylor could have been a couple of flags thrown his way, but the Chiefs took care of business here. And the Ravens, as I said before, are a good football team, but the Chiefs defense looked real good. They were running the ball efficiently. Patrick Mahomes doing Patrick Mahomes things. Every single time that you think you have him cornered, he still finds a way to make a play. And the Chiefs, for me, they are a team that are going to be the best in the NFL until proven differently. And I think that you're not going to get the real test until the playoffs like you do every year, because at this point, I don't know if the Chiefs can be beaten in the playoffs because they haven't really gotten beaten yet, except for the Cincinnati Bengals. Thank you for that 1 year. But the Chiefs are just an experienced, great football team. Rashee Rice looked phenomenal on Thursday night, had over 100 yards. But the Chiefs, they just look like they're playing on a different level. The team that I actually want to see them face now is the 49ers, because the 49ers come in with a similar game plan as they did against the Jets. That would be a very, very fun game to watch. But right now, it's the Chiefs world, and we're all just living in it, and I don't like it. I'm scared, and there's so much red, and sorry about that. But yeah, Chiefs, you're number one, 1-0. Looking at the rest of your division, congrats on the domination. And so just to recap, at number one, we got the Chiefs, 2 the 49ers, 3 the Lions, 4 the Cowboys, 5 Eagles, 6 Texans, 7 Ravens, 8 Bills, 9 Buccaneers, and 10 Steelers. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who should have made the top 10 here? Could the Rams, they deserve some props too, but Puka got hurt, so I didn't put him on the top 10. But let me know. You know, I saw me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at Tom Grossi Comedy, all social media see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And folks, we are trying to get to 1 million subscribers by the end of the season. Feel free to like and subscribe if you vibe with the content. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.